Hey everyone, in the VC is Matt. Still enjoying my week off from work, so I thought I would just continue with the Ringo Starr album reviews. We'll see how long this one behaves, how long that lasts. Anyway, we're getting toward the end, slowly but surely. Who would have thought back in 1970 that Ringo would go on to release 480 solo albums and still be going strong in 20 and 19? Probably not very many people, but he is, and good for him. So we come to March 31st, 2015. The release is Ringo's Postcards from the Edge. This went typical Ringo chart action. Got to 99 in America, got to 157 in the UK. So also typical is these later albums is the rather boring album cover. This one I'll give a little bit of credit to, because it's, I don't know if I'd call it clever, but it's a little cliche. But Postcards from Paradise, into postcard you need a stamp, so there's a stamp with Ringo on it. It's a nice picture of him, I'll give him that. There's the back, nothing exciting there, just Ringo, title of the songs, and who plays what on what. The inside is also nothing spectacular, plain white sleeve. There is the label, which I'm not sure what that's supposed to be. It looks to me like a mirror, or maybe a compact disc that somebody dropped on the ground or stepped on and it shattered. I'm not sure if that's what that's supposed to be, but nothing too exciting artwork wise. Not a cover you're going to spend hours scanning and poring over like you do with some of the great album covers. But so Postcards from Paradise also doesn't really sound like a Ringo album. Sounds like a Mike Love solo album title, or maybe a Jimmy Buffett album. Not too sure about that. Ringo always has the guest stars, or the, not guest stars, just the fellow famous musicians. No exception, of course, this time. Van Dyke Parks, Dave Stewart, Joe Walsh, Peter Frampton, Todd Rundgren, they all make appearances, and some other people there. Ringo wrote all the songs again on this album after his last album had a couple of covers. These are all Ringo penned with help from a little help from his friends, helping out with writing. Let's get into it. Side one, first song is Rory and the Hurricanes. Kind of hit me that he's certainly been singing about Rory Storm a lot on these last few albums. I guess in his old age, he's kind of thinking about his youth more, or thinking about his days with the Hurricanes, his pre-Beatle days. The guy died pretty young, so I think they were pretty good friends. Maybe he just misses him, but it's just strange because he didn't, as far as I remember, back in the Beatle days and then post-Beatle days up until the last, I don't know, 10 years or so, didn't really mention him too much, other than if he was just directly asked about him, I don't think. But it's just kind of curious that he seems to be bringing him up quite a bit on these past few albums. Anyway, kind of a cheesy 80s sound to the song, with an equally cheesy bunch of girl backing singers on the vocals behind there. Got a little drum, but in spite of that, I like this song. It works. Little bit of a drum solo on here that I like, and the obligatory "I was in the Beatles" reference. There's a line that says, the next time I was in town, I played drums with you-know-who. This song is kind of goofy. It really shouldn't work, but in spite of that, it does. I'm going to give it a 7.5. I do like Rory and the Hurricanes. It's a good opener. Don't know that it would have been a great hit or single or anything, but it is a pretty good album track and a good opener. And this was the one that I keep mentioning this. I don't know if anyone cares one way or the other. Ringo, of course, doesn't really get any airplay anymore, other than Little Steven's Underground Garage, and that's the song that they played quite a bit on that station when this came out. We go on to song number 2, You Bring the Party Down. Somebody on here plays Bruce Sugar, who also helped produce the album with Ringo. I think Ringo was the main producer of this album, but He plays the sitar synth, whatever that is. But there's a definitely Indian synth sound feel in this song. Ringo's just having the ball banging away at the drums, does a pretty good job there. Some nice drumming. Song's got a kind of somewhat foreboding 70s rock sound to it. Kind of reminds me lyrically of Dylan's Mr. Jones, even though that song's obviously a lot better than this one. But this song I like. This is a good one, good second track. I'm also going to give that a 7.5. And we go on to song number 3, which is called Bridges, which is a song lyrically is about the choices in life, the paths you took and the paths you didn't take, and so forth. Hardly memorable or monumental, it's certainly not, but it's got a nice guitar through it, courtesy of Joe Walsh. It's gets to the point where you think, okay, this song's gone on long enough, time to wrap it up, and then Walsh comes back in toward the end with some more tasty guitar licks, so that kind of carries it through. Gonna give that a 6.4. And it's funny to me, Joe Walsh does not too bad on these Ringo albums, and I don't know if he was with the Eagles originally or came later, but the Eagles were sort of the backing band. I don't think they were even called the Eagles yet for the first Linda Ronstadt album, maybe the first couple of them. They did fine there. It's just kind of odd that that's one of my least favorite bands ever. They're just awful. The Eagles never made a good song, like anything even approaching a good song ever. But when he's on his own doing this stuff, he's kind of not so bad. It's just kind of funny how that works. But yeah, what did I say? 6.4 for Bridges. Nice guitar work. Pulls what would otherwise be just a pretty average song through to brings it up to a 6.4. Now we come to the title song, Postcards from Paradise. This is more of the, hey, I was in the Beatles, guys, in case you forgot stuff. And this is, in this case, just a whole lot of Beatles song titles and a couple of Ringo song titles strung together to make a song written by Ringo and Todd Rundgren. It's I would say clever, but it's not clever. It's just sort of cutesy pie, maybe. And it's slightly, not very, but slightly interesting for a listen or two, just to catch the different song titles. But that's it. And musically, it's just really a clumsy, plodding piece of music. It goes way, 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 way too long. And it's basically crap, and that gets a 2 for Postcards from Paradise. Yeah. So, 5th song on side 1, Right Side of the Road. Ringo plays something called reggae guitar. Not sure what that is, in addition to drums and singing. Frampton plays guitar, some nice guitar there, some nice organ work from whoever's playing the organ on this. Nothing too exciting lyrically. Musically, though, it's pretty rich. It's got a nice deep bottom to the song that drives it through, and some nice guitar work. Pretty good song to wrap up side 1. Right Side of the Road gets a 6.7 from me. So we go to side 2. First song is Not Looking Back. Lyrically, this is about not looking back to the past, just taking advantage of the present and the time you have left and looking forward to the future, which is kind of funny when several of the songs on side 1 were about looking back, but I don't know exactly how that jives together. It's kind of a ballad, so-so ballad. Lyrically nice, musically just okay. Give it a 4.4 for Not Looking Back. Second song is Bambula, written by Ringo and Van Dyke Parks. Sort of a kind of a Zydeco sound to it. Kind of an upbeat song, a little bit energetic, nice, but it's a song that really leaves no lasting impression. One of those that after it's over, kind of forget about it. It's okay while it's playing though, so I give it a 5. Then we go to the third song, excuse me, which is Island in the Sun. When I first saw this, I thought he was doing a cover of the old Kenny Rogers Dolly Parton song, but that's Islands in the Stream. That's not what this is. Islands in the Stream, not a very good song, and that's something that this song has, Islands in the Sun, has in common with it, because it's strictly MOR, really boring. Island in the Sun gets a 2. Fourth song is Touch and Go. No, it's not the Cars song. Just like on the album before this, Ringo 2012, Think It Over was not the Cars song. But I find it kind of strange that 2 albums in a row and Ringo has song titles that are the same as old Cars song titles. So maybe he did that intentionally to see if anyone would catch it. Probably not, but if you did, I'm on to you, Ringo. I figured it out. So, but Touch and Go is not the Cars song, and it's not as good as the Cars song, but it's got an organ in it that lends the song sort of a 50s rock and roll feel. Got some nice guitar solo in it that sounds a little more 70-ish than 50-ish. Otherwise, the song's pretty cut and paste and pretty average, but for the organ, for the guitar, I'll go ahead and give Touch and Go a 6. And given the choice, I'd listen to the Cars Touch and Go any day over this, though. Fifth song is Confirmation. This is the sound of just adequate at best bar band where you're, sitting there drinking beer with your buddies, looking around to see if there's any cute girls in there. Band's playing, but they're not that good, so you're not really paying attention to them. When they wrap up a song, you'll clap, not because they're any good, but just because you want to be polite. It's got that kind of feeling to it. So, Confirmation, nothing to write home about. I give it a 3. And the album ends with Let Love Lead, which would be that same adequate at best bar band coming back for an encore. Difference being that Let Love Lead is a little more soulful, and I won't call it interesting because neither of these songs are really that interesting, but it's a little more soulful at least than Confirmation. So instead of a 3, it gets a 4. And so that's that. Was a comment on the Ringo 2012 review that congratulating me for, plodding through these albums that are, I forget what he said, just basically boring, which I don't totally agree with, because like I've said over and over, I think there are some really good cuts on a lot of these albums that were never given their due, some gems, but there are a lot of boring things, and also made the point that if Ringo hadn't been in the Beatles, that he just somehow magically gotten a recording contract in 1970 and released these albums, that none of us would care. And there's probably a lot of truth to that. I think maybe, It Don't Come Easy and Photograph may have still been hits, minor hits at least. But he was in the Beatles, and we do cut our heroes some slack. And it's not just the Beatles. I mean, people do that with Bob Dylan, Neil Young, and The Who, and countless, So, but all that said and done, I do think that, yes, Ringo's not as talented as Paul, George, or John, but he's still a great talent, and he still comes up with some good songs here and there. Unfortunately, on this album, not so much. There's nothing here that really caught my attention or grabbed me by the collar. There were no real hidden gems here. If I were to make a compilation of Ringo tracks, I probably wouldn't pick anything from this album. Maybe the first 2, Rory and the Hurricanes and You Bring the Party Down, maybe. But while those are good, they're hardly stellar or essential. So this album, basically, like my friend, Mean Mr. Mayo Joe said, where they get kind of boring from this period, point out, that would certainly be the case with this one. This would be background music at best, and it even struggles to reach that lofty plateau. A couple of maybe 3 good songs on here, the rest of it not so much. overall, I'm going to give this album, I guess I'll go 4.2. And so that is it. We'll be back with 2 more Ringo albums to go. So have a good October, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.